Welcome to Solutions with Courtney Anderson. I am Courtney Anderson, your host for this show. So today's show is part of our series of our Joyful Art of Business, and this is where we delve into those topics that relate to our holistic 360-degree approach to our measurement of our return on investment, or ROI, of our professional endeavors. In other words, we go and we invest time and toil and talent into our professional activities, whether they're volunteer or paid, full-time or part-time, doesn't matter. And instead of looking at how much money we made or how many of the goals we accomplished or how many people we served, we must integrate our individual emotional, psychological response. There are too many people who only focus on the amount of money, the accolades, the amount of volunteer services delivered, and they don't equally measure and honestly assess how they are impacted emotionally, psychologically by these endeavors. In other words, if you're miserable, what is the point? And there's a whole bunch of programs and resources we provide for people that delve into the seriousness of only focusing on your title, your prestige, your income, all these things, and not being honest that you're not happy. And it sounds, again, sometimes I get feedback and people say, well, honestly, who cares if you're happy? Well, you should care. That's why we're talking to you about you. I'm not talking to the organization about whether or not you're happy, although that is part of what we do. What I'm saying to you is it's not enough to only look at part of the picture in terms of figuring out where you should spend your limited resources. You only have so much time. My argument is that you should have a positive emotional, psychological return, and I'm labeling that generically joy. So it's a joyful art of business, and that's what we're focusing on, right? Today's specific topic is I am not here by accident. I am here by my choice. I am not here by accident. I am here by my choice. So many of the programs and shows are based on needs, questions, concerns from clients, community members, people that I encounter in all different types of professional settings. And this show is one that I just could not ignore, the amount of concern people shared with me. And the most important issue is to be cognizant and aware that we do make choices. Now, how many choices we make is debatable. Whether or not these choices are of our own free will is also debatable. But so much of what I hear, people say something along the lines of, "Oh my goodness, they really don't want me. They really don't want me to be here." And when we're talking about our professional lives, people are sharing with me that their perception is that the job title, the position, even maybe sometimes the organization, the industry, that people don't want them there. And then this creates all this stress and anxiety, and the toll it takes on people, of course, is not what we're aiming for. The whole purpose of practicing the joyful art of business is that we're getting these really great positive outcomes average over time, not that every single moment of every work project is just blissful and joyful nonstop. I mean, that would be interesting. I don't necessarily know if that's possible, but overall, more positive than negative. And part of what makes it negative is this kind of concept that, they don't want me there, or, I don't I don't really have any options, and I don't know what to do. And okay, so there are many different branches off of this sort of root issue, and the root issue is that I'm going right to the solution, and the solution is you and I. We are not here by virtue of some sort of accident. Now, by here, I want to just clarify what I mean. I'm not saying that we're not here alive by accident, because there certainly are people who, sometimes even family members, tell people, you were an accident. Alrighty then. I'm not talking about your existence. So I'm not talking about your literally, your conception. I'm not talking about your spiritual or religious practice. I'm talking about like literally right this exact moment. Right. So right now I'm working. This is my work task right now, which is great, and I enjoy my work. But it's work, right? So I'm in my recording area. I'm in front of my computer, set up and monitoring with my equipment, and I'm working, right? That's what I'm doing. So I'm here at this moment. I don't mean like, how I again, was brought into the world. I don't mean, from any sort of larger framework other than literally right this moment. Where are you? So when we talk about being here, especially let's just keep it for a moment on the professional side. So people's stress is, I'm not really sure, and they don't really want me to hear, and and I just sort of feel that that maybe that I shouldn't be, and okay. So my argument is here, like literally in this moment. So I'm not arguing about whether or not as an individual, as a person, the circumstances of my, of my, birth. I'm talking about literally right now, today, because I do have no control over these other things, and and who knows what the, answers are to the bigger questions of, why. I'm talking about here right now. And when we're talking about people who are stressed, worried, fearful, anxious, nervous about professional situations, and their concern is, well, they don't really want me here. Okay, maybe the solution is it's your choice. You're not here by accident. In other words, you're not at your work by accident. I'm not at my work by accident. Right now, I'm working. This is not an accident. I wasn't somewhere doing something else, and then I, sort of had an accident, like I slipped and I fell, and oh no, I fell, and now I'm working. Now I'm in front of, technological equipment, and I'm engaging in a work task. I know it wasn't like that. It's not like slipping on a banana peel. It's not an accident. There's so many different steps, right? So wherever you are in your professional endeavors, when you're there, it's not an accident, because there were steps that had to be taken. Right? You were sleeping at some point. Every human has to sleep at some point. And then you woke up, and then you went somewhere where you do your work. Even if it's in your own, part of a home office, you still went somewhere to do something that allowed you to work, whether it's on a computer or it's on the phone. Like, there's a whole bunch of tasks that had to be done. And for people, you woke up and you brushed your teeth and, took care of your hygiene, and then you had to procure the equipment, whether you yourself have it in your own professional environment, or you go to your place of employment, and then it's there. All of this, these are all steps and choices. It's not an accident at all. And the reason why we emphasize this so much is because you have the right to make your choices. You have the right to have, woken up from whenever and wherever you woke up, and then in whatever path you did, your hygiene, and then you had to make sure that you're hydrated and that you had enough nutrition, and now you're working. Great. That's your choice. It wasn't an accident. It's your choice. And in the show title, I really wanted to emphasize you're here by my choice. You're here by your choice, right? You decide. because it reframes all of the things that are creating anxiety for people, and it puts it back into a very simple framework where it's your decision. So you're working, and that wasn't an accident. You didn't sort of fall down somewhere on a slippery surface, and now, I fell into this work thing. No, there was a lot of different choices that were made. And if you made the choice, right, if you're here and it's your choice, then that gives you back the control. And it allows you to start looking at things that are happening in your work environment through that lens. You chose this. Now, you may have chosen this because it is your lifelong aspiration to be in the professional endeavor, the work endeavor that you're in right now, and it may be something that you worked for, sacrificed for, prepared for years, and now you're there and you're deliriously happy because that's what your number one goal was in life. And in terms of your professional goals, you are now meeting and exceeding it, and this is awesome. And it's your long-term plan to stay in this work, whether this field or this specific industry or this job, maybe. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is the job you've worked for, and you finally are in this job, and you spent, again, time and resources to get here, and you're just going to stay in this until you retire or move on to the next part of your life. This may be all you want to do forever from here on out. Great. You may be in a position where, you know what, you're working a job and it's not intended to be anything other than a temporary solution for your, maybe economic or other needs, and that's okay. But it's your choice. And I know anecdotally for myself, I have worked when I was younger and in my late teens, after I finished high school, I went out and I, had the wonderful opportunity to support myself and to learn what I'm capable of. And by doing that, I had the opportunity to work in many low-wage, entry-wage jobs. Because I was just really young and I didn't have, experience based on age. The other part is I didn't have, any high-level education. I did have a high school degree, high school diploma, which was awesome. But I wasn't, qualified at that age and with that education for anything, elaborate in terms of the job. So I went to, I worked in retail in a mall, in a big store. I worked in food service, and I worked as an administrative assistant. I just did a lot of entry wage, minimum wage jobs, and I learned a lot. And I learned that even if I'm working at a shopping mall in an entry wage, minimum wage job, then it's still my choice. It's my choice. I'm here by my choice. And it helps take the emotional and psychological control so that I'm then less anxious, I'm less worried, I'm less vulnerable to other people's feedback and issues because it's my choice. And if I don't want to do this, then I won't do it forever. I may be in a situation where I don't have another way to pay my bills, in 3 days. So I'm going to be here for the next 3 days. But it's my choice. And one of the other reasons that that this show was important, and also that I sort of started backwards. I normally sort of lay my predicate foundation and then try to argue my suggested solutions. And then this one, I'm starting with my suggested solution, which is I'm not here by accident. I'm here by my choice. So often when I'm doing corporate education and mentoring sometimes, I'm talking to people and they're describing to me what the end goal is that their work that they would, ideally like to achieve, which is awesome because that's, part of the process. And so when they tell me that, then I start asking really specific questions so that I can figure out how to get from wherever they are today to where they say they want to go. It's like a map, right? And you tell me that you want to go to this certain city, that I need to figure out where you are now, and then I'm going to figure out how we're going to get there. Are we going to drive? Are we going to ride the train? Are we going to get on a boat? Are we going to take a plane? How long will it take, right? Okay. So often I'm, providing these services, and of course, everything that I do professionally and in all of these programs, it's always going to be based on, the same thing, right? Pragmatism, the world as it is. I'm very passionate, right? Problem solver. And of course, I'm always looking at surpassing your goals. So I get sort of an obstacle an alleged obstacle, where we're talking about something and then we're moving forward, and then, someone will say something along the lines of, it's easy for you to say. It's easy for you to say. People can't just, quit their job, Okay. A, I know that. And B, I never said it was easy. If it was easy, then everybody would go and have all their goals surpassed and be practicing the joyful art of business all the time, and we wouldn't have anywhere near the societies that we have around the world, right? So I didn't say that. But I also know that I think the default position is it's so not easy that it's actually impossible. And what people will then start to do is layer on reasons why. Okay, so I'm talking to somebody, they're in one situation, and they're describing to me, and I go through the whole process. Talk to me about what your dream life would be. How do you live? What type of place do you live in? Do you live by, where do you live? Do you live by the beach? Are you in the mountains? What's your ideal climate? What's your ideal, environment? Are you in a condo or a flat? Are you in a high rise? Are you in a single family place? Do you have a yard? Do you have, tell me about your fantasy life, because you got to start there, and then we work backwards. So we're doing this. The person, okay, my real fantasy dream is to work, as a high-level manager in a fashion industry. Okay, great. So then I start trying to work through, well, let's break down what we need to do to get the specific type of, first foot in the door position in that industry, right? And so let's say the person is currently working, in the food service industry, in a minimum wage job. Let's say they're a waitress. Okay, which I've done too. I was a waitress. So then we're working through this, and I start to get these alleged obstacles where people say, well, I hear what you're saying, but, I really would, start looking, like you said, into that, that program at the local community college, that's free, where I could, learn a little bit about some of the fashion things I'm interested in. But I have, oh my gosh, I have my childcare issues, and then, the guy I'm seeing, he's only free like on Thursday, and so this class that you're showing me, it's like on, it's like on Wednesday. So if I went to it, then maybe I wouldn't be able to see him on Thursday, because it would take my schedule and kind of eat up my time, and then I have to get a sitter. And then, I had foot surgery, a few months ago, and so sometimes my foot still hurts, and I really don't even know if I would want to, go and, stand and learn about fashion, because of my foot. So basically what they just start doing is giving me all these reasons why they're not going to do it. And I think that's great. I think it's, when I start to hear that, what it tells me is one of two things. Either they really don't want to do this thing, and they just said they did because it sounded kind of cool and abstract, but when you start talking about how to do it, then it's like a lot of work, and they just don't want to put that work in, which is totally amazing and wonderful that they're being honest about it at some level. They're not being explicitly honest about it and just saying, hey, I don't want to put all this work into all this. But they're sort of being honest, because if that's the underlying, cause is that they just don't want to put all that work into it, then that's a level of candor, and it's just like if I said, hey, if the goal was, I want to go to, San Francisco. Okay, great. All right. Well, if we're going to do that, where do you live? Oh, I live in Little Rock, Arkansas. Okay. Well, how do you want to get there? Well, I'd love to fly. Okay. But I don't have any money, and there's no way I can do that. All right. Do you want to drive or ride the bus? Oh, the bus takes too long. Okay. Do you want to drive? Well, I don't see well at night, and I've never left Little Rock, and I'm really kind of scared, being on the highway, and what if my tire goes out? And so it's the same process. If you really don't want to go to San Francisco, then there's nothing wrong with that. There's many people who've never been to San Francisco. Yeah, that's all right. There's, it's not like if you go to San Francisco, your life is awesome. It's not like if you get that fantasy dream job you talked about, your life is some kind of magic fantasy. Of course not. But when people start giving me all the obstacles about the path, and if it's caused because they just really don't want to put the work into it, then that's great, because again, it's a level of candor and it gives us some real answers. There's so many people I talk to, and the reality is that even though they might be expressing some displeasure about something, overall they're really not unhappy. They're not. They like Little Rock. They like what they're doing as a waitress. They don't really want to go. I mean, in like a fantasy thing, I think if they magically won the lottery, or some relative they didn't know existed died, or or some person just left them like millions of dollars, would they maybe do it? Maybe. But if it's going to require like changing their life and making a sacrifice of time and learning new skills, or they don't really want to do all that stuff because they actually kind of like what's going on. And when you begin to move through this process and remind them, look, this is not an accident. Being a waitress, or my analogy of travel is what I'm doing, right? Going from Little Rock to San Francisco. It's just the journey, right? There's nothing weird or less than awesome about being kind of okay with where you are. I am. There's lots of things that I think if I wasn't totally honest, I'd say to somebody, oh, I want to go get a big, I want to go be at a big company. I want to go work at a big place and be, a big important job title, at a big place. The reality is I don't want to do that. It would be, it would probably open up all kinds of exciting opportunities, and I'd get to meet all kinds of interesting people. But I'm introverted, and I'm sort of at a certain kind of pace of life that I don't mind just sort of puttering around in my own little smaller organizations and doing my work that I do the way I do it. I'm delightedly okay. I don't need to go everywhere and do everything. And there's certain types of things, even though they would be fantastic opportunities and on paper, and they certainly would be something that anyone would be impressed by, it wouldn't be right for me, right? Because I know myself to a very, large extent. We all have our own, special beauty. I'm not here, literally, as I said earlier, in front of my, technology recording my program right now. This is not an accident. It's a choice. This is my choice. I chose this. Now, does it mean that there may be some opportunity that comes along in the future that I never even had thought about that is super amazing and it perfectly fits me and my personality and, all the things I'm interested in? Sure, of course it could happen. But it doesn't mean I'm going to beat myself up because I'm doing what I'm doing if I kind of like it. And I really like what I do. So remembering that I'm here, not by accident, but by my choice, it gives me the freedom then to create the life that is going to give me that joyful return on investment, right? Sometimes, though, when people start throwing these pretend obstacles, right, in the path of the journey, oh, I can't do it, my schedule, my boyfriend, my kids, my foot, whatever. Sometimes it's not that they don't really want to do it, but they actually do want to do it, but they're just scared. They're just frightened. And that's okay, because everyone's frightened. We're all frightened of different things. Sometimes we're frightened of the same things, but, fear, some fear response is normal and healthy. If you have zero fear response, then there's something, there's a medical situation going on, right? You put your hand on a hot stove and your nerves aren't able to feel it, that's a medical situation. If emotionally, psychologically, there's massive change or potentially high-risk things that are being engaged in, and you're not having that emotional, psychological response of being able to feel the hot stove with your hand, then again, there's most likely some sort of, a medical or psychological challenge here that we need to get addressed. We need professional help because something's not, right. The fears, often it's a warning signal. Uh-oh, hot stove, move your hand. Uh-oh, this is super high risk and frightening. Okay? So that's okay. then that's a different analysis. Then we need to go through and work through our fear programs. And we have many programs here available and many other programs, and I work with people, collectively as organizations and individually. How are we going to work through this? What's our plan? What's the framework? What are the steps? All of that's a different, we'll just go down that path and get you where you want to go. But the key is, where do you want to go? And to be able to engage in that analysis and that process, you need to take full ownership of where you are right now. How did you get where you are right now? It's not an accident. You chose it. And I'll get a lot of, pushback. Well, I didn't choose it initially, like I didn't have any other job, and then somebody gave it to me, or my friend, or my relative, or, look, I get it. I didn't, like I said, I'm not arguing like your beginning of your existence or your beginning of whatever happened in the past. I'm saying like today. Today you chose it, because today you got up, you woke up from being asleep, because every human has to sleep again at some point. And when you did that, then you made some choices to then continue to do whatever it is to be here, right? That's your choice. And there's absolutely, again, nothing wrong with making a choice that gives you that return where you're more positive than negative in terms of the emotion and the psychology. Everybody is going to have something to complain about. Part of that's just human nature, and the other part of it is there's nothing that you're going to do that's literally perfect every second of every day. It's just impossible. Now, we should work on, it's one of the things that we do programs on, is how much are you complaining? Because a little of it, or being aware that, oh, that wasn't really maybe super awesome, is one thing, and just sort of incessant misery whining thing is another, either cry for attention or another problem. You make choices. You made choices yesterday, you're making choices right now. If they quote unquote don't want you here, who cares? And in the show notes I made a more nuanced argument. My argument was that if you've got reasons for making your choices, right, professional, intellectual, economic, or whatever, other reasons, right, for you deciding to be here, whether it's waitressing or being a pilot or a nuclear scientist or a housekeeper, it's irrelevant what it is, but you made choices. And if you've made these choices and it's giving you that return on investment for the reasons that you selected, and more often than not, it's a positive emotional, psychological response, then it's important that you're aware that other people have perceptions and input, but it's not relevant to your individual decision process, right? Because it's about you and your family or responsibilities or dreams, and that's what it's about. So you listen because it's important that we're aware, right, of much as we can, situational awareness of what's happening around us. But that doesn't impact your decision. If it's working for you, then it's working for you. If they, quote unquote, don't like you to be here, that's too bad. You decide. When you're ready to leave, you'll leave. Now, there may be an instance that maybe you're not yet ready to leave, but the organization is making a change, or there's a reduction in staffing, you're made redundant. It may be that, hey, for whatever reason, they really don't like you, and whoever they are at some point have the power and authority to terminate your position and terminate your work. Fine, okay. But you still decide. And you're going to stay as long as you want to stay, and of course, as long as the organization exists or they, permit you to stay. And then when you want to leave, leave. If they ask you to leave before then, and you really legally need to leave, then that's okay. But you still stayed as long as you wanted to, right? You always want to think about the strategy. Where are you going? It's like that map analogy. If you're going to, to Boise, Idaho, again, you got to know how to get there. Where is it? Do you have your map? How are you getting there? How long is it going to take? It's the same thing with life. You really need to do this, and you need to remember this is not an accident. It may not have been your fantasy idea of what you thought you wanted to do when you were, 6 years old, but if the reality is that you're comfortable, that's a good thing. Like I said, many people would, and have, many people, lawyers and other people and other, professional things that I engage in, have even teased me and made fun of me. Years ago, I was practicing law. I'd been practicing law full time, and then I started doing the speaking and motivational speeches and keynotes and seminars, and so I was, for a while, my schedule was crazy because I was traveling all the time, and I was still running back to be in court on cases that I was trying to, close out. And I went to court on a criminal case. So I was a criminal defense lawyer, and the prosecutor, we were, having this talk about the case, and he started making fun of me in front of a room of other lawyers, and he's like, "Oh, are you doing your motivational speeches?" Sort of laughing, because some people would say it sounds silly and stupid, right? You're a lawyer. Why are you going to go give some silly thing, call a motivational speaker? It sounds stupid. Here's the deal. I don't care what they think. Again, I'm aware of it, and it was interesting. But I loved learning about that industry, the speaking industry. I've done many programs on that journey when I began to learn about it. And I started to get a joy, right? So, like many people would say that these choices aren't rational. But I would argue that they are, because I'm able to meet my needs. I'm able to meet many of my wants, and I enjoy what I do. So that's what was the calculation. It wasn't what some other people think, because they live their lives. I'll live my life. Again, I started with a solution in this episode, and I'm going to end with it. You and I are not here, I mean like literally this moment right now, what we're doing, by accident. We are here by our choice, my choice, your choice, mine, yours. We decide. We're the decider. Own that. Feel that power. And enjoy today. Thank you so much for joining me. And as always, you can go to CourtneyAnderson.com for feedback or more information.